Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a story that honestly feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's happening right now. Russia is deliberately taking its own capital city offline. We're going to look at why, how, and what it could mean for the future of the internet for all of us. Just imagine this for a second. You wake up in a huge modern city. You grab your phone, and this is what you see. Everywhere. You can't get a taxi. You can't grab a coffee with your card. You can't even text your family to say you're okay. The digital world you count on every single minute is just gone. Well, this isn't some hypothetical scenario. It's the daily, baffling reality for millions of people in Moscow. You have this massive, tech-savvy city suddenly thrown into a digital dark age. So the big question is, why? Is this really just a short-term security fix, or is it the start of something much, much bigger?
So before we even get into the politics and the why, let's start on the ground. Let's talk about the chaos. What does it actually feel like when a modern city's digital heartbeat just stops?
Listen to this. This is Lyra, a resident in Moscow. And her words, man, they just capture this feeling that's sweeping the city. It's this deep sense of being powerless, totally cut off from the world, and even from each other. And there's this chilling fear that, the worst is still on its way.
And when everything digital just shuts down, people get creative. And I mean really creative, in some pretty surreal ways. You've got Muscovites pulling out these huge paper maps on the subway, a sight no one's seen in years. And in a moment of really bleak humor, one comedian showed the best use for a useless smartphone was to chop a cucumber. An analog life from decades ago has literally returned overnight.
And look, this isn't just a couple of stories here and there. The numbers are wild. In just 1 week, sales of pagers, I'm talking pagers, shot up by 73%. Paper maps are up 48%. This is a picture of a city desperately trying to find any way to communicate, digging into the past just to get by in the present.
Okay, so what's the official story from the Kremlin for basically turning off its own capital city? Well, according to them, it's all about national security.
The story they're telling is pretty straightforward. These internet shutdowns, they say, are a defensive shield. The idea is to jam Ukrainian drones that supposedly use mobile networks to navigate, and in doing so, protect the city's residents from attack. Simple as that.
And here you have the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, basically framing this as a high-tech chess game. They have sophisticated tech, so we need even more sophisticated defenses. It's a classic us versus them story, painting the blackouts as a tough but necessary choice to keep people safe. But that's not the whole picture.
Because that whole story, that official explanation, it starts to get some serious cracks in it when you look a little bit closer at what's actually going on. Just look at the contrast here. On the one hand, they claim it's all for security. But on the other, businesses are losing something like 1 billion rubles, that's nearly 10 million pounds, every single day. They say it's to protect citizens, but the blackouts were so messy, they even knocked Russia's own parliament offline. And they call it a targeted tactic, but a lot of security experts are saying, you know what, these huge, clumsy blackouts probably aren't even that effective against drones anyway.
And this is the real kicker. During these shutdowns, even the websites the government wants you to see, their own pre-approved whitelist of sites, went dark. So if this was some super precise surgical security operation, why on earth did it block the very things the government is trying to promote? It really suggests this wasn't the shield at all. It was a test.
And all of this is why experts are saying these blackouts weren't a defense. No, they were a dress rehearsal for something way, way bigger, building a completely sealed-off, state-controlled Russian internet. And you can see the playbook right here. Step 1, block the big Western platforms we all use. Step 2, test out a whitelist system, which is exactly what we just saw them do in Moscow. Step 3 is to push everybody onto a single, state-run super app that critics say is just built for spying. And the endgame? Total control over information using a model that's been perfected in places like Iran.
Mikhail Klimarev, who runs an internet protection group, he doesn't mince words. He basically says this isn't about strength or security. It's about a leadership so afraid of losing control that it's willing to burn its own economy and throw its citizens' lives into chaos to hold on to power.
Okay, so let's pull back from the high-level strategy for a second. What's the human cost of all this? What does it actually feel like to live inside this digital siege day in and day out?
Just try to wrap your head around this number. 37,166. That is the number of hours the internet was shut down across Russia back in 2025.
It's a staggering figure that made Russia the world leader in something no country wants to be number one in. And look, this wasn't a switch that was flipped overnight. This was a slow, deliberate squeeze. The outages started popping up systematically in other regions around June 2025. By the end of that year, Russia was leading the world. And then, in March 2026, the strategy hit the capital, the economic and political heart of the country, Moscow.
So when you're faced with this constant, crazy disruption, what do? Well, you turn to dark humor. I mean, when your expensive, high-tech smartphone is about as useful as a brick, what else is there to do but laugh about using it as a cutting board?
And this is where the story gets bigger than just Moscow. Because what we're witnessing here, it could very well be a preview of the internet's future. For all of us.
It's this idea called the splinternet. Think of it like this. Instead of one big, open, global internet that connects everyone, it shatters. It breaks apart into these separate digital countries, each with its own walls, its own rules, and its own carefully controlled version of the truth. What Russia's doing is a giant leap in that direction.
And that really forces us to ask a tough question. Because what's happening in Moscow, it isn't just a Russian story anymore. It's a blueprint for digital control. And it leaves all of us wondering, is that dream we all had of a single, open, global internet, is that already just a thing of the past?